good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever applies to you. And welcome to the Being Your Own CEO Success Circle. This morning, we're going to explore all about Apple laptops. But first, let's do some introductions and give some of our members a chance to arrive. It seems we're missing a few people this morning. So, Vivek, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Namaste. My name is Vivekanand. People call me Vivek, and I believe in living a simple life. I believe in thinking differently. I am proud to share my belief with Steve Jobs and Leonardo da Vinci, who said simplicity is the ultimate in sophistication. So, Steve Jobs, Apple, makes sense today. I aim to bring time tested wisdom and happiness together into your business and life by unifying, simplifying, amplifying simple technology and tools. And I develop software solutions as necessary. So that's what I do. Um, I would be making a presentation today. About Apple and so on, because I have a few things to share with you. Um, as of now, I am in Reading, UK, England. Um, the temperature is autumnal, 17 degrees it says. Um, it has been raining and not raining, and it's cloudy. There's can't see the sun at all today, but by the way, here it is 5 o'clock in the evening, and glad to be here.
We're happy you're here and that you're going to share some of your knowledge this morning. So, Fred, you have a new background.
Yeah, what's new? I move around a lot. Uh, yeah, I'm here for another week and then I move again. Anyway, I'm Fred Jones, the creator of Our Future Leaders, where we help young people gain those skills that they require to be successful in this changing world. I'm currently in Langford, where Jay hangs out, but according to my information, it's 8 degrees, but this is only my part of Langford. Jay's part, it'll be like 22 degrees and sunny and
Oh,
the palm
yeah.
trees. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And I've been working on a blog post for a long time, which is very relevant for young people, but also for us older people. It's called Future Proof,
Hmm.
trying to make sure that we are effective in the future. And a lot of it's got to do with technology, which is something that's always often covered in these success circles, because it's impacting our world so much. And how do we future-proof ourselves against computer systems that will do diagnostics for doctors better than doctors, and help lawyers, analyze law better than lawyers, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you future-proof yourself against that? So it's a very interesting concept. Anyway, that's what I'm trying to work on. It's been dragging along, but this week I say I'm going to finish that blog post. That's my
Need to,
goal.
need to keep it human. Humanity is the or being human, humanness, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it's exactly right.
That
You're
is the
100% sure.
key.
It is exactly right. That is the key to future-proofing yourself. And how do you go about doing that? So that's what I'm trying to write about. But
Well,
you're
and
100% right.
And what you're talking about is artificial intelligence and the impact it's going to have on humanity. A really interesting topic that we hear quite a bit about on the radio, actually. And I see Alana is here. We will give her a minute to get settled. In the meantime, I will say that what do I do? Well, I host these Tuesday morning success circles, but I do love assisting retirees who want to stay up to date and who might even want to create an online business. So I have four websites actually. So I enjoy doing that as well. I enjoy creating websites. So Alana, are you here? Would you like to introduce yourself? There you are. I'm thinking she can't hear us yet by the look of. Can you hear us, Alana?
Oh, you're talking to me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. You're just in time to introduce yourself.
Oh man, I always get in at the last second. Okay, Alana here, coming to you from Ireland. My company is ALB Digital Marketing Solutions, where I write copy and content for businesses to increase sales and conversions.
Mm-hmm. And we were just talking about a blog post that Fred is working on about the impact of artificial intelligence.
Cool.
There is no question that we are moving into a whole new world on so many different levels. It's quite astounding, actually. Anyway, so welcome here, Alana.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And so this morning, by way of context, I thought it would make sense for me to just kind of say what brought us to this point. We discovered online that the new Windows 11 rolled out this month. And last week
for people on one side of the pond.
Yes. And last week we discovered a few things about it, and specifically that PC health check indicated that many of us who we work on computers that will not be adequate for this new Windows 11. Now we do know that apparently Microsoft will support Windows 10 for the next 3 or 4 years, so we don't have any need to panic or to rush around. But we decided that it would make sense for all of us as solopreneurs to explore what our options might be going forward. So this morning we decided last week that the first option that we should look at is should we buy an Apple product? And so Vivek, being one of those people who did buy an Apple product.
Jay is the other one who is not here today.
Jay is
but
another one that works from an Apple product, yes. And but Vivek has put together a presentation for us. So I really appreciate you doing that. You and I did spend a bit of time talking about what some of the options might be and why we might why, what's good and what's not. So I think we're going to look at the pros and the cons of having an Apple computer this morning. So I see that David has come in, but we don't see him yet.
He is peeping through a little hole, square
Yes.
hole.
He says, I cannot stay. I have too much to do. Oh, dear. What's going on in your world, David?
Well, I have a death in the family, and I have to travel to
Oh.
Vernal, Utah by train, and I'm leaving tomorrow, and I've got way too much stuff to do to stay today.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I've been trying to get a hold of you in the green room, but everything I tried didn't work.
Okay. Is this a close family member, David?
It's my stepsister. It's not really a close family member. We haven't had contact for some time, but there are family members that were close to her that I'm close to, so I'm going to support them. So,
Right.
Anyway,
Well,
I'm going to need to leave.
Okay. I'm very sorry to hear that.
Sorry
David.
to hear that. Yes.
But
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You'll be able to later go in and watch the video so that you won't miss Vivek's presentation. I know that this was the topic you wanted to cover first.
Okay. So yeah, I will do that. I'm going to have 31 hours on the train, so I will be more than happy to watch this. So
Okay.
For something to do. Okay. Thanks everybody. Bye.
Bye. Gee, we don't these days in travel we don't think of getting on the train, but it sounds like a really easy way to get from A to B, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yesterday I was watching it's on Amazon Prime. It was a movie. I didn't watch it completely. I kind of lost interest halfway through. It is about, of course, about America, and they are talking about fuel crisis, and what threw me off was they are talking about fuel crisis. That's why planes are all grounded. They are not taking off. So people are depending on the train to travel everywhere. And the train companies are becoming, in this movie, they have become really very important. All that. But what threw me off was the trains are still running on diesel locomotives. So if you're talking about fuel crisis and not enough fuel, how are you running the trains?
How does that fit together? Well, I thought the old steam engines ran on coal, didn't they?
Steam engines, yes, but this is talking about diesel
steam engines, right?
Diesel engines, and anyway, so anyway, that's a bit sidetracking. But when David mentioned trains, I remembered what I kind of lost interest in the movie after I spotted that thing, and they are talking about steel industry and the fuel industry and politics going on and all that. So, but anyway, okay. Shall I start my presentation?
Yes.
I need to share my screen.
What about buying an Apple product? The pros and cons.
Yeah. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. I shall cover 3 parts today. as usual, I start with the why. Why did I go for Apple computer? Bearing in mind that I am a software developer. Why? I'll cover that. And how Apple is different. Then I shall try to guide a discussion on what does it mean to you. So those are the three parts I shall try to cover today. Let me start with why. I kind of disagree with the way Microsoft works. That's the first reason. By that I mean they seem to mistake complexity as being sophistication. Microsoft thinks that make add too many features and make it complex. They think it is sophistication. No, I don't see that as it. It's just complex. It's not sophisticated enough. It's just complex.
And you always say simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Yes.
Yeah. And it is not simple at all. So anything that comes out of Microsoft is hardly ever simple. It's most of the time it's complex. In my view, anything that is complex needs to be simplified for it to be more useful. But Microsoft's business model is such that more complex they make their operating system, they seem to be able to make more money. They start a training program for which you have to pay. They have these Microsoft certified engineers or whatever they call them these days, who are trained in all these Microsoft, the intricacies of or complexities of Microsoft's operating systems. So they tend to make it more complex. That's their business model. Since lots of businesses also think in the same way, they keep it so complex that on your own you can never solve a problem, and hence you depend on their support, which makes more money for them. That's sad, but the truth. That brings me to the second reason. I have worked with operating systems that are multi-user at their very core since 1990s, last century really. I have worked with the Unix and then moved on to Linux. That's why you see a star there and then Nix. Linux, Unix. I started working with Unix and then moved on to Linux, which is a free version of Unix to begin with. Unix is generally developed, maintained by big corporations and hardware companies, and some of them have gone out of business, but Linux continues, and it is a free operating system to begin with. And then I did play a role in starting a Linux user group in one of the premier educational institutions in India. I used to work in Bangalore, India, and there is a Tata Institute of Science. It's actually called Indian Institute of Science, but people refer to it as Tata Institute. I started, they started a Linux user group, and in the very beginning, I was kind of the chief instigator, if you will, because at that time I was working for another Tata Group company in Bangalore. So, anyway, that's more about me. Not really relevant, but yeah.
Hey, wait a minute. That's a piece of I never knew before, and I've known you for a long time, so that's cool.
Linux has many flavors, and Ubuntu is one of them. Linux is free, as in free dumb, not free lunch. Free as in freedom, not free lunch. So you have the freedom to do what you want to do, but it's not really a free lunch. You have the freedom to do what you want. It gives you the source code, so if you wish, you can go into the source code and change it if you are inclined to do that, and if you are capable of doing that, or you can get someone else to do it for you. Okay, well and good, but that's what it means. Linux gives you more freedom to do your own thing, but bear in mind the flip side of that. It means more responsibility on your shoulders. Now come to the third alternative. Mac OS is a Unix 03 compliant operating system certified by the Open Group. It has been certified that way since 2007, when Apple brought out Mac OS X 10.5. Now, Linux is in a situation where a lot more hardware support is desired, but sadly it has been in that situation for a long time, and I mean for decades. Ever since I have been working on Linux, it has been the situation where you come across a hardware and the hardware support is not there in Linux. When you buy an Apple computer, such as Apple Mac or Apple MacBook, you are guaranteed hardware support as far as Mac OS is concerned. And Linux as such is an open source and is developed by Linux community of developers. And Unix was developed by AT&T Bell Laboratories.
Oh.
And it is not open source. At the moment, Linux, you may not realize you are actually using Linux in multiple ways. In many situations, when you switch on your TV, TV is actually running embedded Linux. You switch on, you start using your, I have to use the brand names, TomTom or Garmin or some other SatNav, satellite navigation system, dedicated one. They all run Linux. Your Android phone runs Linux at its core. And Android actually just provides a user-friendly interface on top of the Linux core.
There's a piece I never knew. Wow.
So Linux is everywhere. You may not realize it. It's there everywhere, and many times, whenever some company develops a particular a hardware, let's say someone develops a new hardware device to do whatever, uh, say proximity sensor, security cameras, things like that. They start developing it on based on Linux because Linux source code is available. The core of it runs on your hardware. The first task is to get the core Linux thing running on your hardware, and then on top of that you develop other bits of software which actually do the stuff that you want to do, say scan using the radio frequency or whatever to see if anything is moving, anybody is present in front. I'm talking about a security camera which is motion sensitive. It starts recording when someone moves in front of it, and it goes to sleep when nothing is happening. So those kind of things. So Linux is there everywhere. Okay, I have now come to the how part. One of the major problems that any operating system faces is a piece of hardware that it does not recognize. So until some software developer sits and starts developing some code which makes it recognizable and so on, all operating systems have that problem. So both Microsoft and Linux have to face this problem because of the diversity of the hardware that they aim to run it on. When you try to look for a, say, Windows laptop or a Windows desktop, makes it even worse because you find that within the same price range you have lot of different type of hardware, and including from big companies, small companies, and small startup companies and so on. The range is just bewildering. You can go really crazy trying to decide which one. Of course, then you might end up buying it from your well-known devil, such as Dell or HP, things like that. So the point is, hardware has to be recognized by the operating system, and that is a problem. Now Apple solves this by simply controlling the hardware that is certified to run their operating system. Now Mac OS also has a command line interface which Fred was talking about last week, which put command line was what put him off Linux. But Mac OS has a command line interface which is 99.9% same as any Linux distribution. Now Apple MacBook Air and MacBook Pro are its laptop versions. The Air version is supposed to be lightweight and meant for tasks that may not need too much computing power. The Pro version is supposed to be for tasks that need more computing power. But in all situations, a comparable Windows laptop will be bulkier. So Apple gives you a lean and mean hardware. Now, let me just record the fact that I bought my Apple MacBook Pro in May 2019. And here in this picture you see two laptops. One says it is a ThinkPad, it's a Lenovo ThinkPad on the left, and on the right is the MacBook Pro which I am running now. Lenovo, you feel, it feels heavier than MacBook Pro. It feels plasticky, and when you hold it in your hand, you feel that okay, this laptop does need a bit of protection. You can't just throw it around. You feel that it needs protection, some kind. Whereas MacBook Pro, on the other hand, it feels more metallic and rugged, because this whole thing is metal. And you would think that because it is metal it should be heavy. No, it is not. So let me show you the sideways profile here. Compare the thickness. This is the Lenovo laptop here on the left, and the MacBook Pro on the right. Of course, the Lenovo has more ports to connect external things. It has two USB ports here, one HDMI port, one Ethernet port, one headphone socket here. Compared to that, this seems to have very limited connectivity. But that's only, it looks like that. Because here you see one speaker. I can connect a headphone directly to the MacBook Pro, and the two USB-C ports. There are two more ports on the other side, on the side which is touching the floor there. But yeah, but as such, as you can see straight away from this picture, the Lenovo laptop feels bulky. It feels delicate in comparison to a MacBook Pro. Now I am showing you the dreaded command line interface that is available on my Apple MacBook Pro. And I did use it to install a few things on this MacBook Pro. So as you can see, I am actually running on this command line. I am actually running a command which I am familiar with from my experience in Linux world. It is showing me the directory. These are the files that are there in the directory, and these are the permissions, and this is the owner, and who is the administrator, and so on. So my point is, all the experience that I have had since 1990s working in the Unix and Linux world, it can be used here on an Apple machine. Here is a caution. When you buy an Apple computer, there is a chance that you fall into the Apple walled garden situation. It is a wall, not a fence. Because an iPhone works very seamlessly with an Apple laptop. You will start using iMessage, you will start using FaceTime, you will start doing everything that is Apple, Apple, Apple everywhere. And once you start doing that, you don't really care about anything else that happens outside of this Apple world, in which case you are truly in the Apple walled garden. You don't see anything else that is happening in the world. And that is a danger. You have to be careful not to fall into that walled garden. Okay. Contrast, be aware of Google fenced garden. Google is also a fenced garden. It is a garden, but it is a fence. You still will be able to see, if you make a little effort, you will be able to see outside of that. And yeah, I am using a Android phone with a Apple device. I am constantly breaking the Apple wall as well as Google fence. So yeah, it is not easy, of course. It needs a bit more effort than needed when I mean, you have to do certain things, whereas if you let the system do things for you, then if you are willing to be guided or controlled, as you, depending on how you look at it, by the system that you are using, it's up to you. So, but it is a caution. Don't fall into Apple walled garden, and be aware of Google fenced garden. Now I have come to the what part. I use my computer for software development, communications, marketing, website maintenance, and also watching the news and even entertainment. I am a YouTube Prime subscriber, so when I watch YouTube videos, I can avoid all those annoying advertisements. So that is an advantage, but I see that on my computer. And I am also a Amazon Prime subscriber, so I get to watch videos on Amazon Prime as well. So I use my computer for all of these. Well, what else did you expect with a geek like me? I have set up my phone to sync with my Google Drive, documents, photos, my websites, and even backups of my WhatsApp messages. My websites themselves, I have set it up so that they have a backup which copies itself into Google Drive. So as such, I don't particularly need my phone to interact with my phone directly. I do use my phone for two-factor authentication, Google as well as websites. Many websites nowadays expect two-factor authentication. On my computer, I there's nothing which only thing I say is what I can't live without is a decent browser and internet connection. I do need those two things. So now that I have told you about myself, let's discuss what are the answers each of us have for these questions.
So I have a question about and this isn't a it's probably not a question. It's more like an opinion, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a friend who has a an Apple laptop. I don't know whether it's an Air or a Pro. I don't know that.
Mm.
But she was ready to move into buying a smartphone, a cell phone,
Mm.
because all she
Mm.
had was a flip phone.
Mm.
And she was asking me what should I buy? What do you use? What you know you're really good with your phone. What do you use? And I told her that I also have a Google Pixel, but I did not recommend that to her. I recommended that if she has an Apple product at home, she should buy an Apple phone.
Mm. An
So,
iPhone.
so that she would be in the walled garden because that would be simpler for her. I had another friend who is a PC user and whose family talked her into buying an iPhone. Well, she constantly struggles trying to get trying to understand and manage within the Apple environment. So I always said, use whatever is compatible with what you know in terms of your smartphone. Um, Choose whatever is compatible with what you use on your desktop or laptop. So I think there are situations where the walled garden does make sense for some people.
Yeah, they would feel protected by
Hmm.
Tim Apple.
Yeah.
That's a name given by the former president of the country.
Um, the other thing, I mean, I must admit that I found it when you and I had this conversation before.
Mm.
My big question was why? What made you decide to buy that Apple laptop?
Mm.
And your answer was it's more like Linux.
Mm.
So you explained that extremely well, and but I'm wondering. I mean, there's a few things that don't work very well with Apple. Could you say anything about those?
Things that don't work very well with Apple. Uh, Number one is probably the price, and second one is actually Apple laptops do become quite hot when you use them continuously. They become they are so compact, and so they do become hot if you are putting them on your, I mean, as the name goes, they're meant to be kept on your lap, but most of the
Yeah.
time people don't do it, but keep it on the desk. But the thing is, it does become quite hot.
Mm-hmm.
I have overcome that by using I don't remember the exact name of the device, but it's a uh, device which is as big as the laptop. I put it on my desk. It has a fan, big fan,
Mm-hmm.
and that fan runs. It's not noisy at all because it is big. It's as big as it's almost 15-inch big fan,
Mm-hmm.
and it runs and it cools the bottom of the laptop. Other than that,
OBS doesn't work very well with it.
OBS has its problems. It's you have to make use of several workarounds to make it work properly.
Mm-hmm.
As in, so let's say you want to do what LowellAnn does, for example. You start a success circle with a um, music running in the background which goes to YouTube and all that, but we don't hear it as such. We keep talking in the green room, so we are able to communicate. All that happens using your computer. So to do that using my Apple, it does need a bit of workaround and things like that. And once we go live, we are moving into a Zoom session, going directly to YouTube via OBS. So that means a bit more um, jiggery pokery.
Jiggery pokery. um, you did talk about price, and earlier we did explore the idea of, would you, as a solopreneur, would a person want to buy an Apple computer? And you were suggesting that for a solopreneur, an Apple computer is way beyond
No,
your
an
price
Apple
range. And
Apple desktop is.
yes, that's what I mean. An Apple desktop. Way
So
beyond your price range.
in general, for a solopreneur, I don't see the need for a desktop computer for a solopreneur. It is not cost effective as far as I can see. Your desktop will remain at your home or your office or wherever that is. You put everything on it, but you are somewhere else meeting somebody somewhere else in their office or in a coffee shop or whatever for business. Then you don't really have access to any of your stuff, your business stuff. So for solopreneurs, I do recommend any laptop, and Apple laptop does fit the bill there. So in terms of price, when I bought my Lenovo, I spent around 2,600, 700, something like that. Because it is a fairly high-end one, I needed to be able to run Windows as well as to be able to develop software on it. Because of that, I needed a high-end one. And then Apple, also I spent 2,500 a year later. So I did have that one of the slides. I don't know, 2019 and 2018.
Well, I did a little bit of searching.
In terms of price, I am seeing this from a long time now. If you want anything, a decent one, you seem to end up spending around 2,000, 500 pounds, dollars, whatever, irrespective of the currency and irrespective of the year.
Mm.
Even today, if I need a decent machine, I still end up spending the same amount of money, 2500 in that range, to get something worthwhile, which lasts long, and so on. So
Mm.
uh, there
Yeah.
are, of course, there are lots of computers available for much less, but you get what you pay for. So
Yeah. So we looked up on Amazon.ca. The 18 gigabyte MacBook Air was $23.99. So I'm assuming that because that was on Amazon.ca, that would have been expressed in Canadian dollars. Then we went to Apple.com, and the MacBook Pro, the MacBook Air there was $999 in US dollars, and the MacBook Pro was, let's say you wanted the 16-inch one, is $23.99. So, and that's in US dollars. So in Canadian dollars, that would be much more. So, so you know, they're they're not they're not cheap.
in terms
sure.
of upgrade cycle, when I bought my Apple machine, it was running a version of, I don't remember the name. I think it was called Catalina.
Mm-hmm.
Then they upgraded it. It became Mojave, and then again there is another upgrade. Now it is called as Big Sur. There is one more coming up, maybe a few months down the line. And the upgrade experience has been little bumpy, but not disastrous, unless you happen to upgrade it on the day you need to do something very important.
Or you need to do something else. Well, that's not unlike Windows.
Yeah, but the Windows, the thing is, when Apple brings out its operating system, they very much know what hardware it is going to run on. So they can do all kinds of tests on that hardware and make sure that it works well. Whereas when Windows comes out, um, God knows what no kind of hardware you want to run it on. So no matter how extensive test the Microsoft team does,
there are going to be problems, and we
yes,
we discover those. Yeah.
it's a cost you pay for being able to be diverse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to mention, I have my laptop is a Lenovo ThinkPad as well,
Mm,
and I find the same problem. It gets hot.
mm.
So that has always worried me, because when those things get too hot, then the batteries start exploding and doing all sorts of things. Yeah.
Battery doesn't, yeah, it loses its capacity to retain charge, and it starts losing its capacity quickly. So I would rather, when possible, that is, and when you are at home, you can have the device
Yeah.
that I have, which is like a fan which runs in the bottom. It not only has not just the fan, you can actually elevate it slightly so that the keyboard is at a comfortable angle for your hands, and the screen is slightly raised while you put it on your table. So it gives you those more than one advantages,
Right.
while at the same time cooling the
Yeah.
whole device.
So
It also has a few.
what I do with my Lenovo is I place it on a book so that there's more air circulation on the bottom part. But I have seen those. There are laptop stands that you can buy that do various things. Yeah. So, but I just want to make sure that we've covered everything everybody needs to know about.
What about Alana?
Yeah.
She has an iPhone.
I do. I have an iPhone and I have been converted to it because I have loved it from the moment I got it from my daughter. And it's a secondhand one. It's an iPhone 8. It's nothing fancy. But what I love about Apple products is that there's not a lot of bloatware. So I find Microsoft and Android tend to have a lot of bloatware, and
Not Android, but manufacturers who support, say, Samsung or.
yeah. So, and my other
You buy it
beef-
from Google itself, it won't have bloatware. But yeah.
Right. But I would still at some point convert completely to Mac when I can, because I just think it's a cleaner system. I like the idea of having the software and hardware integrated so that, everything is, all the bugs are basically worked out in the hardware. Whereas with Windows and Microsoft, there's tons of companies out there that are building PCs running Windows and Microsoft products. And I think that's where the problem comes in. So I still think I'll eventually convert. And the other thing too is, like, my phone, I can access my iCloud account on my laptop. So that's not a problem.
That's the walled garden I talked about.
Right, but I can access my iCloud account on my laptop, and my laptop is a Fujitsu. So that's still a possibility. Unfortunately, though, if you have a MacBook or other Apple products, there's not that reciprocality there. There's no, you can't really use Apple products with a laptop. Like, for instance, the AirPods. My daughter has AirPods, but she can't use them with her laptop because they're not, her laptop's not Apple.
Oh, okay.
So she's not, so she can't use that. Whereas I can use regular AirPods with my iPhone, and they're not Mac specific. They're not an Apple product, but I can still use them. So
What's an
Yeah.
AirPod?
those, I don't have them on my desk. There's those little tiny things you stick in your ears. They're portable little earbuds. Earbuds.
Oh.
So they're little earbuds, and you can buy them online. Yeah. You can buy them online or at a tech shop or anywhere for like $30.
Okay.
The AirPods themselves are like $200. But they're specifically Apple product. That's a specific Apple product, and the sound is supposed to be amazing.
Wow.
But regular street AirPods, or earbuds, if you will, I can use with my iPhone, but I wouldn't be able to use them with a Mac.
All right.
So, but I don't know. I still want a Mac. You haven't convinced me, Vivek.
I am using various different headphones and all that with my Mac. So I don't have an AirPod. I do have wireless headsets. I can use this
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
with my Mac, with my MacBook Pro. No problems.
Right.
So
Well, the intention here was not to talk anybody out of buying an Apple product.
Yeah, no, I
The
know.
intention was to know what you're getting into and what
Yeah.
to know what a little bit more about them. That was it was not the intention to try to talk you out of it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I recognize that there are also hidden costs associated with Mac products because in order to get them to be compatible with other things, you have to buy these additional gizmos for
Yeah.
connectivity. So,
You.
like you touched on the USB ports,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
I have this device from Pluggable. It's called as Pluggable docking station.
Yeah.
I think I did talk about that some time ago, probably in one of my videos. In fact, I did connect that to a Chromebook. If you look at my Chromebook reviews, probably you see them there. Uh, this docking station connects to the two monitors that I see here in front of me. Um, and from that, all I do is from this docking station, all I need to do is just one plug into my
Yeah.
laptop. This plug not only provides the power for the laptop but also connects the laptop to the monitors and the keyboard. I have a keyboard Logitech.
So what you're saying is that docking station, it's convenient in many ways because when you want to take your laptop away and go somewhere, all you have to do is unplug one thing. Everything stays plugged in the way it is. So is that a docking station, friend? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that.
I just wanted to say I'm going to have to go. I have another meeting to go to, but I've enjoyed the conversation. So thank you for your presentation, Vivek.
Yeah.
And I'll have to catch up with you guys next week.
Okay. Thanks for joining us.
Bye, guys.
See you. So I don't know, Fred, if you had any observations or any questions that you would like to raise before we.
Last word, as usual.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we've got here is the same situation as I thought last week. If a person needs to say, what should I invest in? This is a challenge. Should I go Apple? Should I go PC? Should I go Android or Chromebook? Because those are all options. And there is a business here, again, for some people or some organizations to say, let me help you. Because first of all, analyze what is it you want to do and what's the best way. If you want to do videos, the options are numerous in all those different areas. Or if you just want to do writing and websites, well, then there are other options. So it's really key. The one thing that came to mind is when you started talking about Linux, and it's quite a fascinating story about the student who was from Finland in 1991, created the core for Linux. His name was Linus, Linus. Torvalds, I think his last name was. And what a fascinating story that is on how Linux came, because this was just a project when he was at university in Finland.
Wow.
And how it became what it is today is quite remarkable. But he was adamant it would be a free operating system, no charge. And that was the main thing. In fact, he didn't want to call it Linux because he thought that was too, egotistical. He called it free something, free X or something originally. But Linux is what stuck for a variety of reasons. Wonderful, interesting story. But again, it comes down to which operating system. We have Windows, we have Unix-based or Linux, and we have, well, I guess Android is still Linux, but it's just Google's version. And in fact, as you mentioned, so is so is the Mac operating system a Linux or Unix-based operating system, which I think came from Steve Jobs when he started his company called Next. When he was fired from Apple, he started a company called
Yeah.
Next and had an operating system. Guess what it was based on? Unix/Linux. I think it was more Unix in those days. But anyway, fascinating stories. You really brought back a lot of memories as far as that. But I think the key is, what do you want to do, and what is the easiest, seamless way to do it? And there are options, and you just don't want to get into one camp and then find out, oh, I wish I'd been in the other camp. So that is a good story. And there's a lot of reasons I don't like Microsoft for a variety of personal reasons. They burnt me as far as I was concerned. And some of it was what you've just said, the complexity is what's the challenge. Yet they dominate in many areas, so you can't ignore them either. But I've gone Google Chrome looking at that mainly because of Vivek. And I'm not unhappy with that at all so far.
So thank you, Fred. And before we close, next week we are going to talk about that choice of a Google Chrome book, and I'm hoping that you'll come and share your own experience with your choice. And I know that Vivek has some knowledge about Chromebooks as well, so that will be our topic for next week. And I understand that there are pros and cons. There are pros and cons to all of these. And so I think it's important for us to explore what they are so that our viewers can make a good decision. So having said that, I want to remind you that it's important to do what you love with passion. And we shall see you next week. And I will do my outro, which is helpful.